Rev up your engines!
Tim Steindl says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on a 2011 Chevy Cruze LTZ 1.4 turbo? I had a customer who had a Chevy Cruze, and on the back of it, he had a picture of Mickey Mouse because he said, this is a Mickey Mouse car. He went through 3 transmissions. It was a non-turbo. I think even less of the turbos than I think of the non-turbos, so I would not buy that car. Now, if you own one, change the oil every 4,000 miles religiously with full synthetic oil. Baby that thing, because they aren't made that well, and with a turbo, it's going to wear out even faster. But if you own one, take care of it. Hey, don't buy another one. Don't be fooled twice, but baby it. Hopefully you won't put too many miles on it, and pray the tranny doesn't blow. Tormentor Gaming said, what are your thoughts on the 3.6 V6 5th generation Camaro? Okay, well, I'm not a big Camaro fan. The V6s though, guys who race them, they only want the V8s. So the lunatics that buy them and do burnouts and smoke and have the police chasing them all the time, they're all driving the V8s. The V6, they don't want them. They see them as being not enough power. They're still 300-something horsepower, right? So, if you find one that's in good shape, maybe a guy like my age drove it, well, you know me driving it because I drive like a maniac when I'm in those things. But if it was taken care of and a guy like me checks and says, okay, they could be a decent car. Same thing as a Mustang. You get a V8 Mustang, most guys get them, they beat the heck out of them. But the V6 Mustangs, they don't go as fast. The guys generally don't beat them as much, and they can be a good secondhand car. That's M132 Morty says, Scott, I'm going to buy a Subaru before 2018, what should I look for in it? Okay, you don't want too high miles. Those boxer engines only last so long. Make sure it's not leaking oil. They often has oil leak problems. Look at the engine, look under the engine on both heads. If there's oil leaking, don't buy it. You don't want to buy somebody else's problem. Take it on the road. If it's an automatic transmission, see how it shifts. But their automatic transmissions are the weakest points of Subaru, so give it a good drive in an automatic. If it shifts or clunks or has any problems, you let go of the gas and it clunks when you're decelerating, don't buy it then. Icons I don't understand asks, hey Scotty, I got an '08 Chrysler Pacifica. Sometimes when I shift and reverse, it'll die, but it doesn't do it all the time. What could be the problem? Well, here's the thing. If it never dies when you put it in drive, but it only does it when you go in reverse, odds are reverse gear is starting to wear out. In an automatic transmission, reverse gear is almost always the first gear to wear out. That's how it goes with those things. It's almost always the first one that goes out. And if that's the case, it's pushing 20 years old, I'd get rid of the thing. They have crappy transmissions. Get rid of it. And I said it only does it sometimes. Go to Carvana. They buy anything. See if you can get some good money and get rid of it. You want a van that's going to last? Get a Toyota Sienna. They'll last 10 times as long as that Chrysler piece of junk will. I had a customer with Pacifica. They went through 4 automatic transmissions. I don't know why they kept fixing them, but the wife liked taking the kids to the soccer matches. Damien says, what's the worst SUV you absolutely tell people to avoid? The Lamborghini SUV. Yes, they make an SUV. I had a neighbor who bought one in Houston. What a rolling pile of crap that car was. You do not want to buy a supercar SUV, right? Unless you own 3 or 4 castles, you know, and you're trying to impress the neighbors when you go to the polo matches, and you can show up one of those things, but those things are terrible. Let's just face it, the supercars are for rich, ultra-rich people, and those SUVs are just garbage. I read about them, but he had one, and it was always in the shop. It was a pile of crap. Coffee Bop says, Scotty, what causes a shifter to break on a 2001 Silverado? They just make them cheap. If you look inside there, there's plastic and there's pot metal. And generally the pot metal will snap and break. It's just GM's, let's make them as cheap as we can. We really don't care. But, I mean, at least it's a 2001 Silverado. The rest of the vehicle is pretty well made. I got customers with those old 2001s, 99, 2000s. They are pretty well built and they can last a long time. The new ones are junk. But those old ones, when they still made them in the United States, they're pretty good vehicles. But, I mean, they still were making things cheap, and they just snap off because they were made cheaper, you know? The old ones never broke. They were solid steel, but everything's plastic and pot metal these days. Abdulrahman Zaiden says, does the PCV valve have an effect on oxygen sensor and channel 1? Okay, it can. If your PCV valve, generally you got a V engine, right? You got one side, bank 1 and bank 2. If the PCV valve's on bank 1, yes, it can affect the oxygen sensor because if it's sucking air on that side, it can make that side run lean and the oxygen sensor's going to get weird lean data. And a lot of times the computers aren't that intelligent. So instead of saying, well, the PCV valve's sucking too much air, it sees weird data from the oxygen sensor. It will trip an oxygen sensor when in case it's just a broken PCV valve that's stuck open that's sucking too much air, which makes it run too lean. Too much air, not enough fuel. Now, of course, all kinds of systems are out there. There's many different kinds. The most common one is that, where it will do that when it gets wide open. If it's on one side, not on the other side, then it'll make that side run lean. Thaddeus Cancer says, how do you feel about a Volvo 2011 XC60? Okay, they're fun cars to drive. They can last quite some time. But like all European cars, they can become money pits as they age. Like I have had customers have them with 160,000. They were still going strong. You don't want to buy one with that kind of mileage on it because it's going to become an endless money pit as it's aged. The parts cost a fortune. The guys that work on European cars generally charge $200 an hour more on labor. I'm not a big fan. Now, I've had customers buy those things for a couple of grand when they're older, and they love the cars, and they drove them until something major went, and then they just junked the things. If you want a toy like that, you know. Dwayne Vicker says, help, I got 2005 Scion beer with the oil-burning engine. Would it make sense changing the engine out for the smaller non-oil-burning engine? Well, unfortunately, you can't just do that. Your entire computer system, all the sensors and the transmission, they're all set up for the bigger engine. I got a friend, he's been through 3 engines, the original one and 2 replacements, and they all blew up because they all burnt too much oil. You get a used one, it's going to burn oil. The only thing you can do is get one that Toyota had rebuilt. They rebuilt quite a few of them free, but they don't anymore because they say, they're too high mileage, we don't want to fix them anymore. I had a guy bring me one today, and that's what they told him. It's too old, we don't fix them free anymore, so. No, don't try putting the smaller one in. Wild Dog says, what's the best classic car for weekend cruising and hold value? How much money do you want to spend, baby? You know, get yourself a 67 Mustang Fastback. That'll hold its value like mad, but you're going to have to pay through the nose for it, you know? What do you want and what do you want to pay for, right? And if you're going to pay top dollar, make sure it's got matching numbers. Guy in Houston had a 67. He thought he got a great deal. I looked, the whole car was 2 cars welded together. The whole front of the car had a big weld the entire thing around. He paid like 45 grand, which is cheap for one of those, but it wasn't worth 20 grand. You got to look closely on that stuff. Depends on what you want to pay and what you want to get. Don't overpay, and make sure you get a guy like me who knows his crap to check it out before you buy it, not like this guy did after when it was too late. Chris Hodson says, what do you think of a free 1988 Ford F-150 4x4 with 44,000 miles? Had for 4 or 5 years. Pulled the gas tank, gas is dark brown, and changed the oil. What else should I do? Wow, you got it for free. What a deal, you know? If it really only has 44,000 miles on it, they made those things last, and it's a 4-wheel drive, you got yourself a bargain. I'd also change the fuel pump. I would change the fuel filter. But it's still fuel injected. You might have to change the fuel injectors, but before you do that, get it running. Get my friend Bernie's ATS fuel cleaner. It's not cheap. It's like $30 for a bottle. But it will clean all the sludge out of the system. In the injectors, on the valves, it does a phenomenal job. Then drive it around. See what happens. You never know. They could fix all the sludge that could be built up in the system, and you might not have to buy new fuel injectors for the thing. But what a deal. That's a classic. That's when they really built them strong, and you got it for nothing. Haji says, what do you feel about comprehensive insurance? Well, I don't like any insurance companies. You always try to screw you over. You pay them money, money, money. Something goes wrong, they don't want to pay for anything and say, oh, your car's totaled. We don't want to fix it because it's too old. Here's $3,000. You know, comprehensive insurance. How comprehensive is it? What are you actually going to get? You paid money to an insurance company, and you know who decides how much money you get? Not you, the insurance company. And they will do whatever they want. Try suing a multinational insurance company. You won't get very far, right? I don't like any of them. I have a bad taste in my mouth for all of them. Anytime I had to make a claim, I don't get in wrecks. I don't have any car ones, but in my houses and stuff, if a tree falls on something, they always screw you over. So I'm not a fan of any of these insurance companies. They just up to charge you as much as they possibly can and then pay you as little if something does go wrong. She says, what are your thoughts on Jetpack Transportation? Oh, yeah, in the 60s, they had that guy at the Super Bowl riding a jetpack. If you know anything about jet engines, they use fuel like no tomorrow. Those things are running on kerosene, jet fuel. They could go, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 miles or something and then run out of fuel. Those turbine engines just, whoosh, they go through fuel like no tomorrow. When my son was in Afghanistan, the fighter jets in Afghanistan, they had to put all their full thrusters and afterburners to get up over the Himalayan mountains. Well, once they got over them, they had to have a tanker up there to refuel those jets in midair because they were running out of fuel already just from taking up and going over. And those are planes with gigantic fuel tanks, right? Jetpack Transportation isn't going to be for anything but movies. I think they used it in a James Bond movie years ago, too. It's not practical transportation by any stretch of the imagination. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.